One winter night, while Peppa and George are sleeping, snow begins to fall. A cold breeze wakes George up, and he calls Peppa to come outside and see the snow.
Hey!
The two quickly put on their warm clothes and run into the yard. To their surprise, there is a sparkling Christmas tree and a beautiful snowman. Peppa and George happily go over and build another snowman together, laughing and playing with joy. On a lovely sunny morning, Peppa and George were playing in the park. Peppa was sitting on the swing, watching as George played happily on the slide. After having fun, Peppa and George would go home to play together. Peppa went to get the toys, and George sat nicely waiting for his sister to come back. The two siblings played together while waiting for Mommy and Daddy to come home. As the day gently faded into night, Big Peppa and Little Peppa sat side by side, chatting softly about the stars above. While tiny stars slowly began to appear in the sky, and they were the zodiac constellations. That is the Cancer constellation, Sagittarius zodiac sign, Libra zodiac sign, Big Peppa and Little Peppa watch together, Scorpio zodiac sign, Aquarius zodiac sign, One clear morning, you and I were still fast asleep. Suddenly, a friend showed up and knocked on the door. Our close friend smiled and said, "Let's go for a walk, you two." Suddenly, a mysterious object began to leak. It turned the white rabbit pink.
Hey!
Luckily, the strange object managed to retrieve the leaking item just in time. Today, Peppa's family is in the living room. Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig are having a cheerful chat when Peppa and George come over to join in. Suddenly, Mummy Pig has a wonderful idea. It's such a lovely day. Why don't we go to the beach? The whole family quickly agrees and starts getting swimsuits. And so, a fun-filled trip to the beach has officially begun. The family is on their way to the beach. After a cheerful car ride, the Pig family finally arrives at the beach. They decide to split up. Peppa and George rush off to build their very own sandcastle, while Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig go for a little walk together and take some lovely photos. On a sunny day, my sister and I decided to go for a walk. Yahoo! The two sisters put on their hats carefully before going for a walk, so the sun wouldn't shine on their heads. Suddenly, a big gust of wind blew Sister's hat away. The big sister burst into tears and cried loudly. The little brother went to get help. The giraffe agreed to help the two siblings. Surprisingly, the giraffe was a magician, so he helped the big sister get her hat back very easily. The two siblings were very happy to get their hat back. A hot, sunny afternoon. My sister and I were talking and decided to go to the pool to beat the heat. And off they went, all excited, heading to the swimming pool. They arrived and saw their friend happily splashing in the water.
Hey!
The little sister jumped into the pool, splashing around happily, while the big sister relaxed and sunbathed on a colorful chair. Peppa and the sparkly bunny friend. Little Peppa was playing with her stuffed bunny. Big Peppa came over and asked curiously, "Where did you get this, bunny?" Little Peppa smiled and pointed into the distance. The two sisters ran off and discovered a magical scene, a table and chairs made of mooncakes and a big gate guarded by white rabbits. Little Peppa sat on a mooncake chair and pointed to the gate. Big Peppa bravely went inside and soon came back, holding two more lovely stuffed bunnies. The sisters were overjoyed, hugging all their bunnies as they sat together at the mooncake tea table under the gentle moonlight.
Peppa Pig and the toilet paper roll. One day, Peppa finds a soft paper roll on the shelf. She gently pulls it, and the paper keeps on rolling. Peppa grabs the end and runs around the room. Soon, long strips of paper are everywhere. Peppa and George look at their creation and laugh. Even a simple paper roll can turn into a fun and silly game.
Peppa Pig and the magical rain. It starts to rain, and Peppa and George watch the drops roll down the window like tiny mirrors. Mummy Pig brings out their raincoats and favorite muddy boots. To them, rainy days mean the best time to jump in puddles. They rush outside, splashing water everywhere, laughing as the puddles sparkle like mirrors on the ground. Suddenly, the sun peeks through the clouds, and a bright rainbow stretches across the sky.
Wow!
Whoa! Daddy Pig steps outside, looks up, and is amazed to see the rain has stopped and a beautiful rainbow has appeared. Peppa and George laugh joyfully, ending the magical afternoon. Peppa Pig and the Starry Night. The night sky unfolds, deep blue and sprinkled with twinkling stars. Peppa and George sit on the porch, eyes wide with wonder. Daddy Pig brings out a small telescope. Peppa and George jump excitedly, ready for their starry adventure. They sit on the roof, peering through the telescope at the distant stars, sparkling like diamonds. A shooting star streaks across the sky. Peppa and George point excitedly, eyes filled with delight. Mummy Pig steps out and stands beside Daddy Pig, amazed as the sky fills entirely with shooting stars. Under the gentle moonlight, Peppa and George hold their parents' hands, feeling peaceful and happy on this magical night. One clear morning, you and I were still fast asleep. Suddenly, a friend showed up and knocked on the door. Our close friend smiled and said, "Let's go for a walk, you two." Suddenly, a mysterious object began to leap. It turned the white rabbit pink.
Hey!
Luckily, the strange object managed to retrieve the leaking item just in time.
Peppa and the surprise bubble party. Mummy Pig is doing the laundry. Oh dear, it looks like Mummy Pig has put a bit too much soap into the washing machine. Look, bubbles are overflowing everywhere. Peppa and George are so excited with this giant sea of soap. Meanwhile, Daddy Pig is busy reading his newspaper. The bubble clouds have completely surrounded him. Where has Daddy Pig gone? Daddy Pig just gave a big sneeze. What a surprising and fun bubble party for the whole family.
Peppa and Cleaning Day. One beautiful morning, Peppa and George were happily playing in their bedroom. Suddenly, Mummy Pig came in and said, "Children, let's clean the house today." Both Peppa and George cheerfully replied, "Yes, Mummy." Peppa quickly put away her stuffed toys neatly, while George ran to the living room with a broom to start sweeping. While Peppa went to rinse the mop, George had already finished sweeping the floor. When Peppa came back to mop the floor, the two siblings worked together to clean the whole house. It's a beautiful day, and Peppa and George go to the park with Daddy Pig, bringing along their colorful new kite. Daddy Pig excitedly runs as fast as he can to make the kite fly high. But Daddy Pig suddenly trips over a rock. The kite still soars up high, but then gets stuck on the statue's ear in the park. Peppa and George look up, both surprised and giggling. A strong gust of wind blows through, pulling the kite down and covering Daddy Pig's head. He stumbles around blindly, while Peppa and George burst into fits of giggles. What was supposed to be a simple trip to the park turns into an unexpected comedy show. The wind blows stronger, making the kite slip right out of Daddy Pig's hand and swirl around in the sky. Peppa and George run after it, giggling and reaching up to catch it. Daddy Pig hurries along too, but quickly becomes out of breath. Yoo-hoo!
Aha!
Hey!
Come on, let's go!
Peppa Pig and the Magical Garden. Peppa is playing when she suddenly kicks a softly glowing stone. When she sets it back down, a glowing sprout slowly rises from the ground. The sprout grows quickly into a shimmering magical flower bush. George runs over, and the two happily admire the glowing flowers. Finally, Peppa's whole family sits down to admire the giant flower tree. Peppa and George joyfully hop on the huge blossoms, feeling truly happy. Peppa Pig and the Giant Cookie. This morning. Peppa's Forest Picnic. Today, Peppa's family goes on a picnic in the forest. George chases a butterfly, making Peppa giggle. Mummy Pig sets up lunch while Daddy Pig finds a shady spot. Peppa shares apples with everyone, and George hugs her happily. The family relaxes together, smiling under the peaceful sky. It was a beautiful sunny morning, and Peppa and George were playing in the backyard. Suddenly, George pointed up at the sky, where the stars sparkled brightly. Peppa smiled and nodded in agreement. The two quickly got ready. They put on their helmets and stepped into the shiny spaceship. The rocket blasted off, soaring through the fluffy white clouds and into the vast universe. They floated around joyfully among the stars. Peppa stopped on a bright orange planet, while George lay back on a soft pink planet, smiling as he gazed at the endless galaxy. Peppa and George were walking near a sparkling crystal-clear lake.
Whoa!
Peppa set a paper boat out on the water, and George watched it float gently. Daddy Pig brought a small paddleboard, suggesting they could have a boat race. Peppa and George paddled lightly, laughing as their boat glided across the lake. Mommy Pig stood by the lake, taking pictures and reminding them, "Don't go too far." Finally, the whole family stood by the lake, admiring the sparkling water and enjoying a peaceful moment.
Peppa and the Flying Hat. Peppa walks into the yard and sees a hat on the grass. Peppa walks closer and picks up the hat. Peppa puts the hat on and smiles happily. George is playing with a ball nearby when he sees Peppa and the hat. A gentle breeze blows by. The hat on Peppa's head is blown into the air. Peppa watches the flying hat in surprise. The hat floats and lands farther away. Peppa runs after the hat. George runs after her. The hat rolls on the grass and stops. Peppa picks up the hat. They look at each other and laugh happily.
On a sunny day, my sister and I decided to go for a walk.
Yahoo!
The two sisters put on their hats carefully before going for a walk, so the sun wouldn't shine on their heads. Suddenly, a big gust of wind blew sister's hat away. The big sister burst into tears and cried loudly. The little brother went to get help. The giraffe agreed to help the two siblings. Surprisingly, the giraffe was a magician, so he helped the big sister get her hat back very easily. The two siblings were very happy to get their hat back. One clear morning, you and I were still fast asleep. Suddenly, a friend showed up and knocked on the door. Our close friend smiled and said, "Let's go for a walk, you two." Suddenly, a mysterious object began to leak. It turned the white rabbit pink.
Hey!
Luckily, the strange object managed to retrieve the leaking item just in time. A hot, sunny afternoon. My sister and I were talking and decided to go to the pool to beat the heat. And off they went, all excited, heading to the swimming pool. They arrived and saw their friend happily splashing in the water.
Hey! Hey! Okay, let's go!
The little sister jumped into the pool, splashing around happily while the big sister relaxed and sunbathed on a colorful chair. Peppa Pig and the Dream of Flying to the Stars. Peppa was sleeping in bed, moonlight shining into the room, eyes closed. Peppa dreamed she was floating in the sky among the stars. George appeared in the dream, both flying past the sparkling stars. Wow! Peppa and George played among the constellations, spinning and holding hands. Peppa woke up, smiling, looking out the window at the moon and twinkling stars, dreaming of her next adventure. Peppa was surprised to see a strange hat on the grass.
Huh? Whoa!
George ran over and touched it, lights twinkling from the hat.
Whoa!
Peppa put the hat on. Bubbles of light floated across the garden. Magical indeed. George tried the hat too, bubbles swirling around them, making them laugh out loud. The bubbles rose and settled on the tree branches, sparkling in the sunlight. They took off the hat, bubbles faded, but the magical joy lingered in the garden. Peppa and George decided to join a race. But not an ordinary race, it's a trash truck race. Trash trucks may not be fast, but Peppa and George can do anything when they're determined. The race gets more exciting as both trucks speed through obstacles. However, no race is without surprises, and Peppa couldn't escape this trap hole. No one wins when there are too many obstacles, but at least both had fun. The race ends, but Peppa and George realize that having fun is more important than anything else. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes when they saw a piece of bread flying through the air. They decided to chase the flying bread, but it was fast and looped around like a plane. It seemed like this piece of bread wasn't easy to catch, and it took a quick break on a tree branch. Surely this bread knew how to play tag, and Peppa seemed to be its favorite target. After an adventure, Peppa finally caught the flying bread and smiled happily. Finally, Peppa and George realized that sometimes the best adventures are when you can enjoy the fruits of your efforts. Never thought that an afternoon walk would turn into a disco under the streetlight. This streetlight is like a DJ, and soon enough Peppa became the main dancer of the party. This might be the new dance craze in the park, and maybe only Peppa can do it like that. After non-stop dancing, Peppa decided to stop. But the streetlight didn't know what giving up meant. In the end, Peppa realized one thing. The streetlight in the park never stops partying. But Peppa could finally go home. The fun ended, but Peppa would never forget those offbeat dance moves in the park. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes. A giant truck was parked right in their yard. This truck is not only big but full of strange things inside. Peppa is curious and wants to try them all. George tried to push the giant wheel, but he might need a bit more strength to move it. No worries. Peppa decides to drive the giant truck, but it seems it's not as easy as she thought. Sometimes all it takes is a little push on the gas pedal to start an adventure, even if it's a bit out of control. Finally, the truck stops, and Peppa and George realize one thing. Sometimes the fun starts with the most random things. Peppa and George were playing in the park when suddenly some balloons started floating in the air. Both of them decided to chase after the flying balloons, but they kept floating higher and higher. George jumped as high as he could to catch one, but sadly, he still couldn't reach it. Peppa found a chair to climb on, stretching her hands out, but the balloon floated even further away. Finally, one balloon gently floated down near Peppa and George, and they were thrilled to catch it. Peppa and George realized that sometimes the simplest joys bring the happiest moments. Peppa and George were amazed when a giant ball rolled toward them. The ball was too big, but Peppa didn't give up and decided to push it. The rolling ball created funny circles, making Peppa laugh non-stop. George joined in, helping Peppa to control the giant ball together. When the ball hit a puddle, huge splashes sprayed everywhere, making them laugh even more. Finally, they realized that sometimes the greatest fun is just a giant ball and your own laughter. Peppa and George are ready for the dance contest. But there's a secret. Not everyone knows how to dance like Peppa. Never doubt Peppa's creativity, even if it's a super spin move instead of a dance step. George isn't any less. It's just that he hasn't fully developed his shoestring dance potential yet.
Hello.
Sometimes, a graceful dance ends with a free fall, at least for the bunny. Whether winning or losing, what matters is everyone can laugh and dance happily. With Peppa, every day is a day to dance and laugh out loud. Peppa and George's walk today suddenly turned into an adventure with a giant balloon. The balloon flies easily, but does Peppa have enough strength to hold on? Don't worry, Peppa. George won't let you fly too far. Or at least, that's what she hopes. Go! And then, the balloon takes Peppa higher. No way to come back. Peppa realizes that a flight isn't always smooth, but at least it's fun. Finally, the balloon gently lands Peppa back on the ground, and George is ready for his next race with the balloon. Peppa and George were watching the clouds, and today there was a special cloud, a cloud bus. Who needs a real bus when with just imagination, Peppa and George are already flying high? The clouds looked like strange creatures, and Peppa couldn't stop imagining they were dancing with her. Not just a cloud bus, now there's a cloud elephant greeting them. The ride through these clouds was magical, and they met even more cloud friends. Although the journey was just in their imagination, Peppa and George had an unforgettable adventure. Start the day with a battle. Against the office door. That always says, card not recognized when you're in a rush. Welcome to the extreme game called Swipe In on Time, or you're fired. Barely sat down and already attacked by the ancient enemy. A system update during rush hour. In Office Land, a light desk tap could be mistaken for a full-blown rebellion. Each minute crawls like a century, yet vacations are always buried under 200 emails. End your workday with the ancient art of disappearing right before the final meeting. fine evening, Little Pig was sleeping soundly in his room. But as he closed his eyes and fell asleep, a strange dream began. The little pig opened his eyes and found himself at the bottom of the sea, surrounded by colorful fish and beautiful coral reefs. Little Pig wanders into an underwater garden where sea flowers are blooming and dancing to cheerful music.
Oh!
The baby pig swims like a little fish and can even surf like a superhero. Everything under the sea is fun and colorful. After a wonderful adventure, Little Pig felt a little tired and decided to return to the real world. The water world gradually disappeared, leaving behind a feeling of relief. A happy morning starts with, a delicious chocolate cake. Oh my, who could resist? But when the baby turned around, oh what? Where did the cake go? The little pig is on a hunt. Under the table, in the fridge, even in his boots. And finally, the cake was right in the hands of the pig, eating deliciously. But don't worry, Piggy has prepared a second portion of cake for you. How sweet! Little Pig and his sister decided to explore a forest that was said to have many strange things. But no one expected that. Today would be a special adventure. As they went deeper into the forest, they came across a giant tree, standing tall in the middle of the road. But not any ordinary tree. Suddenly, a mysterious warning rang out from within the tree. Be careful, darkness is approaching, and things will never be the same again. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The shadows of the trees began to move, but it wasn't the wind. Little Pig and Sister Pig ran faster, but the darkness seemed to be unyielding. And in the end, nothing strange happened. Everything was in the sisters' imagination. Little Pig and Sister Pig are preparing a wonderful party with delicious grilled food. Everyone is happy, but something unexpected is about to happen. Suddenly, there was a sizzling sound from the oven. Something was definitely wrong. Little Pig and Big Sister Pig ran around the kitchen in a panic. Little Pig grabbed everything to put out the fire while Big Sister searched for a towel. But would this help? But then a miracle happened. Sister Pig found the fire extinguisher and ran out to put out the fire. One beautiful morning, Little Pig and Little Pig were walking in the garden. Little Pig suddenly discovered a big rock. But the strange thing was, this rock could move. The curious little pig approached the rock, and in the blink of an eye, the rock started rolling, as if it wanted to lead the little pig somewhere. The stone led Little Pig into a mysterious area of the garden. where there was a small gate covered with wildflowers. The gate seemed never to have been opened. As they pass through the mysterious gate, Little Pig and Sister Pig enter a magical garden, a vast flower garden, and a giant candy garden. So the adventure ends, but this mysterious garden will surely have many interesting things waiting for Little Pig and Sister Pig to discover. Who knows where this stone will lead them next? Peppa Pig and the Forest Walking Adventure. Peppa and George walked along the forest trail, Daddy and Mummy Pig following, with trees green on both sides. Peppa spotted a yellow butterfly flying. George pointed excitedly. Daddy Pig slid lightly on a wet branch. Peppa and George giggled. Mummy Pig picked some wild strawberries and gave them to Peppa and George, both laughing happily. The family stood on a hilltop, looking at the green forest, holding hands and laughing happily. Peppa and the apple on the high table. A red apple sits on a tall table. Ooh.
Aha!
2 hours later.
Peppa and the Little Paper Boat. After the rain, Peppa folds a paper boat.
Whoa!
She sets it on the puddle, and it begins to float. The wind makes the boat move around like magic.
Whoa!
Daddy Pig blows gently to make it go faster. The family relaxes together on the porch, talking about the boat's adventure.
Whoa! Wow! On a hot summer day, George stays at home, sitting in front of a fan to cool off. Peppa Pig comes and sits next to him.
Wow!
Just then, their parents return home from work and see how hot the kids are, so they invite them to go outside. Suddenly, an ice cream truck arrives, bringing cool, delicious treats. The whole family enjoys the ice cream together and has a happy, joyful day.
Whoa!
On a happy Sunday, George brings home a small young plant and invites the whole family to plant it in the yard. Peppa, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig join George to dig the soil and carefully plant the tree.
2 hours later.
After waiting for some time, Peppa and George run outside to check the plant. To their surprise, in front of them is a lush little forest full of green leaves. The two siblings happily jump with joy because their small garden has turned into a beautiful forest. Peppa Pig and the Reflecting Puddle. After a light rain, a small puddle shines in the sun. Peppa sees the blue sky reflected inside it. George touches the water, and the sky begins to ripple. Peppa steps in gently, making tiny splashes. Soon the puddle turns into a fun little game. When the water becomes calm again, they see their smiling reflections in it. Peppa Pig and the Balloon. One day, Peppa notices a red balloon floating in the room.
Wow!
She gently taps the balloon, and it slowly drifts upward. Peppa and George jump up together, trying to touch the balloon. Suddenly, the balloon drifts to another corner of the room. Peppa and George quickly think of a new game. The balloon floats back and forth, turning the whole room into a fun little playground. Peppa Pig and the Soap Bubbles. One day, Peppa finds a small bottle of soapy water on the table. She dips the bubble wand into it. Peppa gently blows, and bubbles float into the air. George happily runs after the bubbles. Each time he touches one, it pops. The little bubbles turn the moment into a joyful and playful game.
On a sunny day, my sister and I decided to go for a walk.
Yahoo!
The two sisters put on their hats carefully before going for a walk, so the sun wouldn't shine on their heads. Suddenly, a big gust of wind blew Sister's hat away. The big sister burst into tears and cried loudly. The little brother went to get help. The giraffe agreed to help the two siblings. Surprisingly, the giraffe was a magician, so he helped the big sister get her hat back very easily. The two siblings were very happy to get their hat back. One morning, George wakes up and looks around his room. Toys are scattered all over the floor. Books lie in a messy pile on the desk, and the blanket and pillows are all over the bed. George puts, he hands on, he hips, sighs, but decides he will turn a messy room into a tidy, cozy place. George starts picking up each toy, sorting them by shape and color, then placing them into different boxes. One for cars, one for stuffed animals, and one for building blocks. Each time George closes a lid, George stacks the boxes neatly against the wall. George folds his blanket carefully, smoothing out each corner. While folding, a big teddy bear hidden inside the blanket falls to the floor. George giggles, hugs the bear for a moment, then places it neatly at the head of the bed, right next to her favorite pillow. After dusting the desk and arranging the books in order, George steps back to look at the whole room. Everything is clean and tidy, the floor is clear and shiny. George lies down on the bed, opens a picture book, and enjoys the cozy feeling of George's freshly cleaned room. Peppa and George are playing with a balloon in the park. A strong gust of wind blows the balloon up into the sky. Peppa looks up at the balloon, startled. George points at the sky, following the balloon with his eyes. Peppa and Daddy Pig start running after the balloon, trying to keep up as it flies higher. Peppa and Daddy Pig run across the grassy field, their legs moving quickly. George runs behind, watching the balloon and smiling. Peppa and Daddy Pig spot the balloon caught in a tree branch. Peppa points at the tree, excited to see the balloon. Daddy Pig uses a long stick to try and reach the balloon from the tree. Peppa hops around happily. Peppa and Daddy Pig are happy to have rescued the balloon. Peppa holds the balloon in her hands, smiling. George jumps up joyfully. The pig family sits down together and continues to play in the park. The pig family arrives at a farm to try being farmers for the day. We're going to be farmers and take care of the plants, Peppa says. Everyone gets ready to start working on the farm. Peppa and George start watering the plants. I'm going to water the plants so they can grow big and strong, Peppa says. George helps his sister by watering around the garden. Peppa and George begin to pick ripe tomatoes from the garden. Look, our tomatoes are ready, Peppa says. The pig family continues to pick vegetables and put them in their baskets. After a hard day's work on the farm, the pig family sits down to enjoy the vegetables they just picked. We can eat what we've grown with our own hands, Daddy Pig says. Everyone enjoys a meal, and feels proud of their hard work. After a hard day's work, the pig family sits down to rest. Being a farmer is fun, but I like playing more, Peppa says. Daddy Pig laughs and says, helping on the farm is good, but playing is fun too. The whole family laughs and feels proud of their work. Peppa helps Mummy Pig clean the house. Peppa and George are happily playing in the living room with toys scattered all over the floor. The room looks so messy. Mummy Pig walks in, looks around the messy room, and decides it's time to clean up. Peppa and George quickly say, let us do the cleaning ourselves. The two little ones start picking up toys and putting them into baskets. When they finish, Mummy Pig feels so proud of them. Gentle giggles fill the warm, cozy room. Hearing the laughter, Daddy Pig peeks in curiously. Oh no! He steps on George's toy car. It looks so funny. Peppa, George, and Mummy Pig burst out laughing. While Daddy Pig looks confused about why that toy is there.